Morning, Vishnu.
Hi, morning.
Okay, when did you buy this car? How long you been driving it?
So I bought this car back in July. Well, July is when Maruti thought it best to give the car to, and I was confused on which model to go with. I wanted the automatic, but the automatic back then wasn't available in the top trim, the Alpha variant. What happened was Maruti back in July, end of July, they announced that they are coming out with the Alpha variant in the top, in the automatic with the CVT transmission as well.
Okay.
And I immediately called up my relationship manager at Pasco Gurgaon and told him that I want this car. I sent the money, the booking amount 11,000 rupees on a Saturday.
Okay.
This guy made a paper challan booking for me. On Monday I got a call from him saying that, sir, your car has been allotted.
Oh wow.
So it took less than 48 hours for me to get the car.
Okay.
And I think it's probably one of the first cars to roll out of the assembly line, the Alpha variant and the CVT with the CVT gearbox.
Okay.
And I was one of the lucky few to get it so quickly.
Okay. And how much have you driven till now?
Right now it's showing 8,430 kilometers.
Okay.
I do on average about 40 to 45 kilometers a day.
That's a city drive completely.
Typically I get an average about anywhere between 13.5 to 14.5.
Okay.
So right now it's the MID on the car is showing 13.9. Just climbed up.
Okay. Okay. Now let's go back a little. When you were in the market to buy, if you could explain what all you went through, which all cars you checked.
For me, actually, my buying decision was based around the budget that I thought of, which was between 7 to 8 lakhs. 8 lakhs was the upper limit, and 7 is what I was thinking of because I was not able to find anything good below that.
Okay.
And the other challenge that I had was I have a tough time getting into small cars because of my height. I'm 6'3", but most of the other cars, especially in this segment, they are cramped for space. If they have a wider body, they are short on legroom. If they have legroom in the front, they have no legroom in the back. And ideally, I wanted a car wherein I could take on 4 people if I had to. Normally, I drive with just me in the car, but if I have to do any trips or even drive out over the weekends for some shopping, and go out with my family, so I will definitely need 4 people to be easily accommodated in the car that I went for. So those were the 2 criteria that I was looking at, and the third optional one was the automatic. Because I was sort of like done with driving manual because of the constant stop and go like we are doing right now. Constant gear shifting and constant shifting your legs from the the clutch, the brake and the accelerator. So it used to get very tiring. The roads are okay, then you enjoy the drive. But that was never the case, especially in city like Delhi. So that was the third criteria.
Tell me why you rejected the other.
So once I had narrowed down on the so-called premium hatchback segment here in India, so the 3 options that were open to me, well, largely speaking, was the Baleno, the Hyundai i20, and the Honda Jazz. The reason I didn't go with the Honda Jazz, although they do have paddle shifts, which the Baleno doesn't in the automatic trim, but the automatic trim wasn't available in the top model. So the top model and the model below that, there were a lot of differences in features, which I was not keen on letting go. And I was sort of like hell-bent on getting the automatic as well, because by then I had test driven both manual and automatic of all the variants, of all the car options that were available to me, including the i20 and the Jazz and the Baleno. And I was sort of like sold on the CVT gearbox, which Jazz also has. So Jazz was out, and the other thing that I noticed with the Jazz was the room in the cabin was less than the Baleno. And it was more expensive as well. Like to like model, I think there was about a difference of 40,000-50,000 rupees. This is after Honda offering me a big discount. So sticker price of Baleno and versus discounted price of Jazz, there was still a big difference. So Jazz was out. The reason that I didn't go with the i20 was, again, like I explained, it only offered the automatic gearbox, and I think the second from the start, the variant. I think it's
probably the sports.
Sports model. So I was looking at the Asta or the Asta option, but that was only available in manual, and again it was way too expensive. So unfortunately, then well,
had it been in your budget, would you have considered it more seriously?
The i20, yes, because it had more it had more kit inside the car as opposed to a Baleno as well. but I don't think it made practical sense to spend 2 to 3 lakh rupees more than what you would have on a like to like car option.
So, but did you test drive the i20?
Yes, I test drove the i20, and one of the things that I didn't like about the i20 is the steering. It's so all three have electronic steering, but then when you pick up pace, the steering on the Baleno tightens up, so you get a little more feedback. You feel a little in tune with the tarmac, with the road down below. So you get that extra confidence when you're cornering and when you're doing high speeds, which you don't with an i20. i20 even at slow speeds and high speeds, the steering feels very loose.
Okay. You also mentioned about the ETOs. Did you consider it seriously in the final option?
I did consider ETOs, but by then, I was just looking at reasons as to why to reject Baleno. So when I was looking at other options, I was always going back to the Baleno and sort of like comparing it with the Baleno. So like putting the pros of the Baleno against the cons of whatever car that I'm looking at. So one of the things that I absolutely hated about the ETOs was, the lack of any sort of, kit inside the car. It was very plain Jane. It was very basic. No automatic climate control, very sad looking ice inside the car. The seats were very, bench like in the back, with absolutely no lumbar support or no cushioning even in the front seats, And for a car which cost 8 to 9 lakh rupees, it seemed off.
Pretty stripped.
Yeah. And also the things that I absolutely hated about the car when I test drove it were the brakes. So for all the test drives that I took, one of the things that I was ensuring to do was, do a straight line brake test. Whatever speeds I could get to, depending upon the traffic, and then brake. So I think the ETOS brakes were the most, it was bad. It took a while for us to stop, and that was scary as well.
Correct.
So I didn't really see myself driving, on the highways, going even beyond 80, 90 with that car. Because you don't get any confidence if your brakes are not good. Overall, in terms of comfort, I would rate the car 4 on 5.
What about fuel efficiency?
Fuel efficiency, again, from what I understand from my friends who drive other cars, this gives really good fuel efficiency. 14 or 15 in city drive, especially with the crazy traffic that we have these days in the metros like Delhi.
And what about the safety in terms of rating on safety?
I would rate this 5 on 5, especially by Indian standards.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Because all Nexa cars by default, they come with ABS and EBD.
Okay.
They come with child seat harnesses in the back seats, which is something that is not common practice in India.
Yes.
By most of the manufacturers. So, and it has dual airbags as standard kit across all segments.
Okay.
So even if you're going for the low end Maruti, which is a Baleno Sigma model, you'll still get these 3 features.
What about the braking?
Braking is good.
What do you mean
although,
by good?
I haven't really tested it in extreme conditions.
Okay.
Because like I mentioned, I am more of a sedate driver.
But has it behaved to your expectations?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's a lot better than some of the other cars that I've driven for the likes. Come to mind Nissan, which is the smaller, the
Micra?
Yes.
Okay.
Those have really bad brakes.
Okay.
Good brakes in the sense that you don't get that confidence when you're. So when I'm driving this car, I know that it will stop when I want it to. But you don't get that confidence with some of the other cars.
Okay.
Like for example, we have done while I was testing. Some of the things that we tested was how quickly does the car come to a full standstill from a speed of about 70 to 80.
Okay.
On a straight line.
Okay.
And I think this was one of the best performers, and the Nissan Micra and the Toyota were one of the worst performers.
What about the ride quality?
Ride quality is good for city driving. I don't know how it will handle when you cross speeds of 100s, 120s on a highway.
Okay.
Maybe it could get a little bumpy there.
Okay.
And especially because the car is not at all heavy. It's a very light car. I think it's about 960 kilograms or something.
Okay.
Which is crazy for this size of a car.
Okay.
And I think from what I've read and what I've understood from other owner feedback is that the car does seem to rattle at high speeds. But if you are a person who are looking to own this car and only drive within the cities, I don't think it will be a problem. And just based on my own user experience, I think I'll rate it 4 on 5. So the steering does tighten up on when you are approaching higher speeds, but it's a little inconsistent. I'm used to the Hondas and the Volkswagens and the Fiats of the world where the feedback from the steering is very good.
Okay.
It is not as great as those cars, definitely, those manufacturers, but it is still better than your normal Maruti or what Maruti has on
What
offer.
do you mean by feedback from the steering?
Feedback from the steering in the sense that when I am driving and when I am throwing the car about, it feels it doesn't feel as tight as what I would get from like an hydraulic steering, for example.
Okay.
So, but it's not as bad as an i10 or an i20. I feel that Hyundai has one of the worst, they have one of the worst steering feedbacks in terms of when you're driving the car. I think it's more of a personal viewpoint here. So, I'm not a fan of the Hyundai steering.
I could make that out.
Yeah, so it just feels, it doesn't give you that feel of the road. Especially when you're driving at high speeds and cornering, you don't get that feedback from the car that you would get when you are driving any of the Italian or the European cars.
Okay.
The things that I enjoy, again, this would be, I think, par for course for any automatic car.
Okay.
I think everybody should be owning an automatic car. Your life would be less stressful, lot less road rage as well, simply because you don't have to keep starting and stopping and shifting gears every single second of your drive to work or back. So that's one of the things that I absolutely love about this car, and especially when it comes to the CVT gearbox. I think it's ideal for a city wherein it gives you that right balance between giving you a good mileage and giving you good power as well at the same time, unlike a DSG gearbox which gives you power but is a little skimpy on the mileage side of things. So when it comes to overtaking, at times it's a challenge because you don't have that instant power delivery that you are used to with a manual gearbox, but I think that's a fair trade-off for the comfort that you get in return. I think the suspension for city drive, the way Maruti has set it up, is pretty good. In fact, from what I've read online is that some of the initial batches when the car rolled out was it had harsher suspension, and over the years Maruti has actually at the back end replaced all suspensions for most of the owners who have complained about it, absolutely free of cost. And this problem has been, I think, eradicated with the newer models, especially the ones after 2017. 2017 Jan, any car that's manufactured post that, I think they have a good suspension. And all the older ones have also been brought to the same level. So for city drive, I think the suspension has been set up correctly, and I don't think I've heard any complaints from people sitting in the back as well of poor ride quality. So again, I think when it comes to suspension, I'll rate it 4 on 5 because I'm sure there's scope for improvement, and since I haven't really driven this on the highway, I can't give you a complete picture, so I think I'll reserve that 1 point for
that.
So CVT is this gearbox. I think Honda was one of the first ones to bring it in Indian market, if my memory serves me right. And what this does is it allows you to have like an infinite gear ratio. So unlike a manual car where it has a range for each gear, and there are limited number of gears, with CVT what happens is that depending upon your speed, your gear is automatically switched. So you don't have to do any of those inputs at your end. You simply put it in drive and move along. So the gearbox takes care of what gear ratios has to be maintained so that you get the maximum and the optimum output.
But wouldn't that be true for all automatics?
Yes and no. So for the AMT gearboxes that Maruti has for its the lower variants like your I think the Celerio and the Altos
and the Wagoner.
So those again, they don't have like an infinite gear ratios. They have those limited gears. The only thing is that instead of you switching, there's a mechanism that they have inbuilt into the gearbox which allows the car to switch it automatically. But it doesn't give you the same smooth drive that you get with the CVT, simply because there is always you can feel the gear shifting into place with an AMT and some of the other automatic gearbox technologies that you have. But with the CVT you don't get that. And as you can attest, we've been stopping and going and picking up speed as well at certain points. You don't really see that a gear being that gear shift that happens when there is a change in power output that you get when you go to a higher gear, that you don't really see in this. Now the drawback that comes with that is that there is this effect called the rubber band effect that comes with all these CVT gearboxes, where there is a slight amount of lag when it comes to you putting the pedal down and that power actually being delivered to the
Okay.
So there is a slight lag there. So when you're trying to do any overtaking maneuvers, you have to like sort of like accommodate about few seconds to adjust for that. Unlike how you would get maybe in a DSG gearbox, from what I've driven, it has excellent response, and it gets you instant power. So that's something that's lacking with the CVT gearboxes, and it's not something that's limited to the Maruti CVT gearboxes. It's the same across all car manufacturers.
Okay.
So even with the Honda, with this Honda City with the CVT gearbox, you're gonna get that that rubber banding effect that you would when you're trying to flow the car. Yeah, I think that's about it. That sort of like covers most of.
I must thank you for all your time